and good morning, all you wonderful children of God out there. I want to welcome you to Charis Daily Live Bible Study. So I want to go over the schedule right quick. First of all, my name's Julianne Harris, in case you were wondering, and I work for the Distance Education Department of Charis Bible College. So let's go over the schedule of this 5-day-a-week live Bible study that we have. So on Mondays and Fridays, we have it at 10 a.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays are at 6 p.m., and Wednesday, bright and early, we have it at 7 a.m. But rest assured, it's all recorded. So no matter what, you can watch it at any time. And guess what? You can watch it over and over and over again. And I would suggest you do that because the material that's coming through these Bible studies are absolutely life-changing if you allow it to. So that's the schedule. Next, it is live. There's a lot of fun stuff that comes with it being live, like if we mess up, we just got to keep going. It's awesome. And then the ultimate best part of it being live is that we want to interact with you. So whatever format you are watching this program on, go down to your chat section, and as questions enter into your heart, please type those questions in, and here towards the end of the Bible study, we will try to get as many of those questions answered as possible. Next, this is a viewer-supported Bible study that is 5 days a week. I've mentioned before, we're actually doing 7 live streams a week. And listen, folks, it is made possible by the partners of Andrew Wommack Ministries. And what that means is when you are a partner, you are also not only a partner in sending it out, but you are a partner in the fruit that it brings in. So praise God, I would encourage you to become a partner of Andrew Wommack Ministries. How you can do that? You can go to awmi.net/give, or you can call our helpline at 719-635-1111. And last but not least, if you are going through something today, you know, we have trained prayer ministers that are available 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. And listen, they're trained to pray with you. They have a heart of God. The love of God flows through them. And they also have like a computer system that can resource every bit of Andrew's material. So say you're going through something and you're like, I wonder what Andrew teaches on this. Guess what? You can call them and they can get you that information. So give them a call at any time, 719-635-1111. And I think that's all the announcements this morning. So I am super excited to announce and introduce our guest. If you've watched him a couple times before, you were abundantly blessed, as I know you will be today. So our guest minister today is Daniel Bennett. And Daniel is the Executive Director of Student Administration. Mm-hmm. What does that entail, sir?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, so that basically means that I help take care of the Woodland Park students here at Charis Bible College. And so I have a big team that handles everything from pastoral care for the student body to some degree, and you know, data, records, things like that. We are a college, we need to have tests and things like that, so we keep the records of those things.
Yeah.
And so just a wide variety of things for the students here, and so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to mention too, so my favorite instructor when I was in Bible school a few years ago was Barry Bennett. And so this is Barry's son. Not that I'm not trying to have you feel any shoes, because I'm pretty sure the more I listen to you, you have your own set of shoes that I'm not sure anybody else could fill. So
try to, or at least flip-flops or something.
Hey, your dad likes Hawaiian shirts, so you know, you got the flip-flops. There you go, you're a team. So that made no sense. Anyways, over to you, sir.
Okay, well, I'll jump in.
Okay. So
it's good to see you all again. For those of you who've seen me share one of these Bible studies before, you know, the last couple times that I was here, I talked about the key to everything. And so I don't know why they keep asking me back when I already solved everything. Just rewatch that one. And should help you out. But no, I really enjoyed sharing that, because that's, again, a passion of my heart, is about hearing God. But today, the title of this little Bible study is Enjoy the Journey. Enjoy the journey. And so, you know, again, I went very big picture last time, and today I want to go very small picture. I want to go the other direction and focus on something that no one likes to talk about. Uh-oh. And, you know, it's I didn't call it patience, which is what I want to talk about, because I'm like, who on earth would hear patience and be like, I want to click on that, right? And so, patience doesn't sound very exciting, but this is actually powerful. And, again, most people don't like waiting. I mean, just on my drive here today, it was a bit ironic because I was getting a little bit annoyed at people going slow in front of me. And going below the speed limit. I annoy most people. I'm usually the guy people are mad at because I'm going the speed limit. But I was like, okay, wait, I'm going to be talking about patience. I should really apply this right now. And so, we don't usually like waiting. And we can talk about this all the time is like we're a microwave society, things like that. We like everything instant. But there's two sides to it. It could be that there's something good in your future and you want it now. Something that God's promised you, something that you're looking forward to, and you're like, well, I want this now. But it could also be something unpleasant in your present that you want to be done with now. Where it's like, I just want to overcome. I don't want the process of overcoming.
Yes.
And so it can be both things. It can be I'm just discouraged because there's good things that I want, or it could be I want freedom from bad things. And so, I know I don't know how many viewers we lost when I said I'm talking about patience, but again, it's not the most exciting thing in the world because it's usually something we consider like we're just forced to be patient. It's never something exciting that we look forward to. It's something that we just have to do when it happens to us. But again, there's lots of kinds of things we might have to be waiting for, and it can be big and little. It could be somebody in traffic or a long flight. I don't know if you've ever been on a 14-hour flight or 18-hour flight. And you're like, I just want to get there already. But it can also be big things like your calling, or if you have a desire for a spouse or for children or something, and it's taking years and years. So some things could take years that require patience, and some things could take minutes or even seconds, right? I don't know if anyone's watching this and you're actually watching this while waiting for someone to get ready, and you're like, we're late, I can't believe you're still getting dressed. Usually I wait on my wife in the morning because she takes longer, but then when she finally gets ready, she's like, I'm ready. And I'm like, well, now I'm not ready. So we both have to be patient with each other.
Amen.
So again, there's a lot of things. Maybe you're in school and you're like, I just can't wait to start my career or start my ministry or get out of high school if you're in high school or college, or if you're in a long doctoral program or something, and you're like in school for years and years and years. So again, there's lots of things that we might have to wait for. And like I said, usually patience is something we just are forced to do. We're like, patience, the definition here says the capacity to accept and tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. So basically, I have to wait no matter what. Being patient just means I have a good attitude about it. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So it's kind of boring in that sense. But it's so much better than that. It's much bigger than that. And so that's why I want to share about it. Because the thing is, everybody, Christians and non-Christians, can be forced to wait for things. And they can choose to have a good attitude about it. But if it's something that everybody can do, then we're missing out on God's version. Because, the world has their own version of love. The world has their own version of happiness, their own version of faith. They can believe in something. But God's version is supernatural. It's much bigger than that. And if we're limiting ourselves to the world's version of patience, we're missing out on something amazing, because God's version of love is so much better. God's version of peace is so much better. God's version of joy and faith is so much better than just the world's superficial versions. And so there's a supernatural element of patience that we can have. One scripture that I think we all know, and I use this all the time, 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4, and I'll say it from the NIV version first, but love is patient, love is kind, and then we go on and on. But I was thinking about it like love is patient. Usually we skip past that one. We're like, yeah, love is patient.
Yeah.
I should be patient if I love somebody or something like that. And we skip right past it. The New King James is what I usually use. And that one says, love suffers long, right? Patience and long suffering are synonymous, right? That original word there, it's sometimes put into English as endurance, suffering, long patience, things like that. So again, you're suffering because you want something and you don't have it. You either want something good right now and you don't have it right now, or you don't want something bad right now and you have the bad thing right now that you don't enjoy. But again, love is patient is the very first one. And usually when we think about love and we say, man, God's love is so amazing, or man, I'm so madly in love with my spouse or whoever I'm dating, or I have a crush. Usually patience isn't the first one that comes to mind. We're like, man, I love you so much. I just am so excited I get to be patient for you, right? I guess with kids that kind of is more apparent,
Right.
And so, again, God's love is already inside of us. And that's the beautiful thing about it is that, I used to read 1 Corinthians 13 and say, love is patient, love is kind, love doesn't seek its own, and I used to think it was a checklist. If I'm walking in love, God's demanding that I do these things.
Right.
And actually what God's saying is, this is what I'm like. God is love. So he's saying, I am patient, I am kind, I don't boast, I don't seek my own. And so when we understand that, God's not demanding this of us from our own willpower. God is saying, this is what I'm like, and I'm inside of you.
Praise God.
God is patient, and God is inside of you. So the patience is there. We just need to learn how to draw on it.
Amen.
So, again, we have a supernatural ability to be patient, but it's not always fun. It doesn't mean we're going to like it. It's similar to the concept of submission. I heard somebody teaching on submission, and they said, it doesn't count. It's not true submission until you disagree with the person that you're submitted to. Right? It's easy to obey somebody if you agree with everything that they say. The real test is when you disagree, and then you have to say, am I submitted or not? That's the real thing. And so in a similar way, it's not really patience if you don't mind waiting. Patience is when you don't want to wait.
Right.
I want this good thing. And again, I'm not saying that it's a selfish thing or a bad desire. It could be, I want to walk in my calling. I want to be a blessing to my family. It could be real genuine desires that God's put in our hearts. But if we don't want it now, it's not patience. Right? If you're kind of like, oh yeah, that's down the road, who cares? It's not patience until you don't want to wait.
It's kind of like temptation. It's not temptation unless it tempts you.
Right, unless you want it. unless it looks appealing in some way.
Yeah, praise God.
And so we can't say, well, the secret to patience is to not care about anything, because that's not patience if you stopped caring.
Right.
And so we want to, we want to walk in patience when it's something that we don't want to wait for. So that's why I want to talk to you all about enjoying the journey, right? Because, like I mentioned, first of all, patience is inside of us. There's a supernatural element of patience that we can draw on. It's in our spirit man. It may not be in our flesh, may not be in our brain, but there is patience inside of us, and we can draw on that, and it's not just natural logic. It doesn't have to be like, well, I understand and I agree with this. It might just be, I'm being patient even though I really don't want to be. I don't want to wait till tomorrow. Things like that. I'll get to some examples here in a little bit. But again, why is patience important, and how can we resist discouragement? Especially when it's something that God's put in our hearts. Sometimes the people who dream the biggest struggle with discouragement, because if you don't want anything, then why would you ever get discouraged? But when God's called you to something amazing, if you're single and you're like, I know I'm called to be a great spouse and I can't wait to get married. That's a strong desire, or if you're called to a certain kind of ministry or career or whatever it is, the stronger the desire, that's a strong emotion. And so then when you have to wait for it, that strong emotion can turn into there's a fine line, right, between faith sometimes and discouragement of like, I know I'm standing in faith, but then that strong emotion, if we're not looking at it through eyes of faith, can turn into discouragement very easily. Mm-hmm. So again, the bigger the desire, the bigger our emotions and thoughts about it are going to be. Sometimes it can be disillusionment or something, or we may get concerned of like, well, am I should I be doing more? Should I be trying harder? Things like that. So we might second guess ourselves, or second guess what we feel God's leading us to. So again, it might be things aren't happening fast enough, or it might be that nothing's happening at all, or it might be that you think you're going the wrong direction. Maybe you are going the wrong direction. You're like, man, God's called me to prosper, and I'm getting worse off. Or God's called me to raise amazing kids, and they're getting worse. And so we can say like, well, I'm trying to be patient, but it's discouraging when in the natural we aren't seeing it right away.
Amen. So
I want to give you all some illustrations, mainly two. I'll start with one from my son, and then I'm going to talk more a scriptural one that I'll go into more in depth. But last night, my little boy Joshua, he's 11 months old, and he had a bite of food in his mouth. So my wife gave him a little bite, and he's crying because he wanted the next bite.
Okay.
And we're like, no, Joshua, eat the one you have right now, and then you'll get the next one. But he's like, no, I want the next one right now.
Right.
And so I was like, it kind of cracked me up, because I'm like, how many times do we do this as adults? We're like, I don't want this step right now, I want the next step. Yeah. But then when we get there, we're like, well, I don't want this step, I want the next one. And so it just cracked me up where it's like, no, you literally have food in your mouth right now. Just chew it. Just chew it and enjoy it. Enjoy this bite right now, and the next one's coming. It's on its way. It turned out he just isn't crazy about meat, but he does this a lot. He wanted the beans instead of the meat.
Oh.
But so many times we aren't happy with what's in front of us right now. We're just looking ahead. And so we want the promise in the future, but we forget the one that we're experiencing right now sometimes. And so an example I want to dig into more is King David, right? And I've mentioned King David before, but again, he was anointed to be king when he's a teenager. But it didn't happen for years and years. And for a long time, it looked like it didn't happen. For a while, he rose in favor with Saul, and then Saul's trying to kill him. And it's like, this is getting worse. I feel like I took one step forwards, two step backwards. So it took a really long time. But here's the thing, is that when God promises us something, the promise doesn't mean until this promise happens, your life is meaningless. Until this promise happens, I can't use you. Until this promise happens, I've got nothing for you. And so, because see, sometimes we get impatient because we're like, life won't begin until this happens. Right. But think if David had thought to himself, my life won't begin until I'm king, because that's what I'm called to, and now I'm just frustrated, and I'm not enjoying the journey, I'm not enjoying today. It's just, how do I become king? How do I become king? God, please make me king. Please make me king, right? That would have been very frustrating for him. And here's the thing, is that God had amazing exploits for David before he became king. And he didn't tell David about them in advance. It's like, well, no, I've anointed you king. But guess what? While he's still a shepherd, still serving his father, he killed a lion. He killed a bear. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. I still haven't done that yet. It's still on my to-do list.
Praise God. You can do it, Daniel.
I always figure wrestling a bear is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but I'll save it for the very end.
For the very end.
It's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But think about David and Goliath. Right, that's one of the most inspiring stories in the history of the world. I mean, even non-Christians talk about David and Goliath. And that happened before he became king. So if David had said, my calling doesn't begin until I become king, he would have missed out on so much. There were amazing things that God had for him before that even happened. And so, David running away from Saul, right, that was part of David's story. David learning how to trust God. David learning how to lead an army. These are all things that happened before his calling actually happened. He was being patient. And see, that's the key, is that since he was patient, he didn't miss out on what God had for him today, what God had for him along the way. See, patience allowed heroes of the faith to focus on the exploits right in front of them and not just look forward to the ones that God put in their heart for later. Because that's the thing, is that life is a collection of tiny moments. Sometimes we think about life where it's like, well, I'm called to this, I'm called to do that. And it's like, okay, but that's not actually how life works. Life is one moment at a time. Yeah. And even when you reach that place, you're still going to wake up. You're still going to have, brush your teeth, hopefully. You're still going to, get ready for your day. You're still going to eat food. Like, it's not like suddenly your life becomes a montage with music or something, whereas, that's how you tell a story after the fact. But when you're living it, it's just one moment at a time, one moment at a time. And that's the thing, it's kind of like a book, right? A book is a collection of words. Mm-hmm. A movie is a collection of sounds and lights. Yeah. And so it's not about, sometimes we say, oh, those little things don't matter. It's like, no, that is what tells the story down the road. And so our calling isn't just, I'm calling you to reach this level. I'm calling you to have this title. I'm calling you to have this status. You're married now, the end, right? It's like, no, that's just a change in status, but life is a collection of little moments. So the question is, what can your moment be right now? Instead of waiting and saying, well, my moments can't be awesome until this happens, until my title is this, until my status is this, until I'm operating in this gifting, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for God instead of waiting on God. What can our moments look like right now? I mean, think about it. Imagine if Samuel had anointed David to be king, and then they just walk over to Saul, and Samuel says, by the way, Saul, David is king now. And Saul said, oh, okay, and hands David the crown, and David's king. Would we have ever heard of David? Right? David wouldn't have learned how to trust God. David wouldn't have learned how to lead a nation. No one in the country would have heard about him. No one would trust him. They'd say, why is this teenager in charge? We don't know him. We don't trust him. We don't know what he's like. He wouldn't have gone into kingship with any momentum, because it's like, okay, well, now that I'm king, now I have to learn how to be king. And when God actually said, no, by the time you're king, you will already be operating in that anointing. No one would be inspired by him today if that's how it had happened. And so I'm not saying that God never wants to do a quick work. God can do very quick things. But again, it's moment by moment. It's, are we embracing this moment right here, right now? Is this everything that it could be? Or are we holding off till something else? Well, even on a silly side, right? Some people say, well, don't even talk to me till I have my coffee. And some people say things like that where it's like, I'm not even going to try to enjoy my day or be a blessing to people around me until this time of the day. And I'm not a morning person, don't talk to me till afternoon. I'm not a night person, don't talk to me till tomorrow. And sometimes we keep disqualifying right now. And that's the problem, is when we say, no, right now can't be amazing. Right now, God has nothing special for me. Right now, there's nothing to look forward to. And so because of that, we get impatient if we don't realize the value of this moment right here, right now. If you think of Moses with the promised land, he's another example where God's like, take them to the promised land. Imagine if Moses had been frustrated and discouraged and then saying, until I take them to the promised land, my calling won't happen. When actually, no, your calling was to take them there, because that didn't happen until he was 120 and he dies, and then Joshua takes them in. So it's like, yes, his calling didn't happen until his life was over, but everything that happened before then was amazing. He had an amazing story. The main thing David would have missed out on if he just had become king was that he wasn't called just to wear a crown. He was called to be king, to lead the nation. He would have missed out on part of his adventure with God. Sometimes we think, I want to get married. And then God says, well, I want you to marry this person. And then you just say, well, God told me to marry them, let's get married right now. And God's like, well, wait, no. I wanted you to enjoy that journey of getting to know each other, of the memories, of the romance, all this stuff. Don't jump past the journey. Yeah. That's the problem, is we want to jump past the journey straight to the end game. When it's like, well, no, the journey's part of your calling. The journey's part of what God wants to do in your heart and in your life. And it's kind of like with parenting. I have two little kids, like I've mentioned. I have a boy who's 11 months old, and my little girl is just under 3 years old. And I used to say things like, I can't wait to teach my kids how to ride a bike. I can't wait to read them bedtime stories. I can do it now, but they don't really follow. Things like that. And it's like, you hear yourself saying, I can't wait until. And if it dawned on me, I'm like, I'm not going to say that anymore, because I can wait. I want to wait. If I could, I would slow down time. Wow. Because I'm going to get there anyway. But I want to savor every moment. I don't want to rush past, even the sleepless nights for my wife. I don't even want to skip past that.
Nice.
I know. They're sleepless for me.
What a nice guy.
I know. I just I remind her when she's like, I haven't slept in 6 months, and I'm like, honey, we don't want to fast forward this. Now I'm going back to sleep. I'll see you in the morning. Nice. No, I'm just joking around, partially. And so again, but we can enjoy the moment right now. We don't want to just rush past. What if we said, man, I can't wait till my kids are grown up? And it's like, okay, well, what if when they're grown up, now that you missed all of that in between? And if we say, well, right now they're not perfectly behaved. Right now they're not potty trained. Right now say when they're teenagers or something, right now they aren't as mature as I want them to be. Okay, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy right now anyway. We don't have to wait till everything's perfect to start enjoying life. We can enjoy the process.
Amen.
And the growth and the adventure of growing, as opposed to saying, I'm focused on the goal, I'm focused on the goal. Life doesn't begin until I get there. Because I do not want to wait till, I don't want my kids to be adults and me be like, oh yeah, now I want to enjoy being a parent.
Right.
It's like I've missed it. The journey isn't always easy, isn't always what you would do with your free time if you could choose something else, but at the same time, the journey is precious. And in hindsight, you look back and say, man, I wish I'd enjoyed the journey more, because now that I'm there, it's not like life stopped. Now I'm just on a different journey. I'm in a different chapter of the book. Amen. I had a friend who I lent him a movie. It was an action movie. And a couple weeks later, I was like, hey, did you like the movie? And he's like, it was okay. And I'm like, oh, did you like the fight scenes? He's like, yeah. He's like, actually, I just fast forwarded to the fight scenes and to the ending. And that was it. And I was like, you missed the whole point. Yeah. Right? Without the context, the fight scenes made no sense. There was nothing at stake. You don't care about what's happening. And sometimes we try and do that with life. It's like, God, fast forward me to the highlights. I'll only really be in the moment when it's a highlight. And God's like, no, those other moments are what are going to make the highlights good. If you just jump from highlight to highlight, you won't even enjoy your own story. I want to enjoy my story and the adventure that God has for me. And so part of that means embracing the moments that aren't highlights, because those can be precious, and then they make the other parts even more precious.
Like the moments like when you were stuck in traffic this morning?
Right.
Yeah?
Honestly, I used to be like, man, I can't stand my commute. I mean, I drive an hour to work and an hour back. And I realized, well, that's going to be a big chunk of my life, driving to
Right.
work and back. And so I don't want to just say, until I get there, I'm not going to enjoy life. It's like, no, how can I enjoy my commute right here, right now? How can I enjoy this time with God?
Amen.
And now, even though I want a shorter commute because it's a waste of time, I really enjoy it. I'm going to miss parts of it. Like now that we've been working from home with the
Yeah.
lockdowns and everything, I've been like, I kind of miss my mornings of just driving and just spending time with God. And on my way home, I listen to a book or something. And I just, like, you can learn to enjoy it. And if it doesn't seem easy, I've been in a lot of situations where I have to find a way to enjoy the present.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Marine boot camp, I got sick and I didn't end up becoming a Marine, but I was there for 3.5 months in boot camp. And for 2.5 of those months, I was in the medical rehab platoon, and I would sit down on a footlocker all day long, except for when we're marching to and from the chow hall. And I'd just be shining boots or standing up and ironing. And that was it, like all day. And I was like, this is more restrictive than prison. You know, I'm like, I'm not even allowed just to wander in a cage. I'm actually sitting on a footlocker shining boots for like 12 hours a day.
Oh my goodness.
And but then I was like, okay, God, show me how to have fun right now. And I did. You know, I've developed a strong immunity to boredom and things like that.
Praise God.
And so again, no matter how big or how small it is, we can learn to enjoy this moment right now.
Amen.
So again, right here, right now, God has something amazing for you. But are we willing to hear Him? Are we listening to Him to tell us that and show us that? You know, what does victory look like right now? What does God's best in your life look like right now? See, right now is part of your calling also. You're not just called to that end goal in 3 years or in 10 years or in 5 minutes. Right now can be amazing. We can embrace that. Oops. You know, Matthew 6:34 says, therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Right? And that's talking about trouble, but I think the same principle applies with opportunities. Sufficient for the day are its own opportunities. Don't be stressed out, because another form of saying trouble is, I'm troubled that my opportunities aren't today. You say, no, don't worry about tomorrow. Focus on today. Embrace today. There's enough opportunities to enjoy life with God right here, right now. Amen. You know, God is with you 100% right now. You know, it's, again, this whole, everyone with COVID, everyone's posting stuff like how bored they are and stuff and all this free time. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. First of all, I have little kids. But second of all, I'm like, I enjoy time. I mean, lock me in a room and I'll enjoy time with God. Yeah. So again, today can be awesome and tomorrow can be another kind of awesome. And so let me wrap up here real quick. I want to share some examples, right? Because see, patience isn't just about waiting. You know, patience is about embracing what God has for us right now. Amen. God has amazing things for us. He's 100% accessible to us right now. I mean, that's awesome. I heard a minister once say, right now you're as close to God as you want to be. And that convicted me, because I was thinking like, I need to push in, or I need God to invite me to another level or whatever it is. And it's like, no, God's 100% accessible. Amen. How much do I want Him? How much am I sowing into that? How much am I approaching Him with boldness, with what He's already given us? But again, to me, when I realize the ball's in my court, I get to decide how close we are right now, how much I'm enjoying Him right now. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's not my situation's fault. Oh, well, right now there's no way I can be happy. Well, right now there's nothing. I'm waiting in line for 6 hours. I'm stuck at the DMV. Whatever it is. Or I mean, again, I've had to wait for, I wanted to get married. As soon as I wanted to get married, you know, I wanted to stay single till I was about 20. And then when I was 20, I was like, okay, I think God's called me to get married. But I didn't get married till my early 30s. So I had to wait a long time, and I wanted to have kids since then also. And it's like, well, then I didn't have kids till my mid-30s. Yeah. And so it's like I had to wait and wait and wait. But see, by embracing that moment, now that I'm married, now that I have kids, I'm enjoying it so much more, because by embracing all the moments leading up to that, I became a different person who now, I think about it all the time. I'm like, my kids are so blessed that I didn't have them when I was 20. Because I was a totally different person back then. Like, I wouldn't have known how to be gracious with them and kind to them and loving the way I am now. I still would have done my best, but we grow as a person.
Right, right.
And so again, I want to look at patience with some, in the context, and again, I'm just wrapping up here real quick. Patience in the context of promises, right? You may have a promise in your heart. It may be for, again, your calling or something that God's promised you, a provision or something like that. But Hebrews 6 verse 12 says, do not become sluggish, but imitate those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. Right? And we like the faith part, but the patience part is also there, where it may not happen exactly when we think it should or exactly when we want it to, but faith and patience are powerful. Honestly, patience will make anything better. When we have setbacks in life, Acts 16 verse 25 says, at midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. So they're like, well, God called us to this city to minister, to make an impact, maybe have a revival, start a church, and we just got tortured and now we're in prison. That's a setback, right? But they were thinking to themselves, probably not this exact phrase, but basically right here, right now, what's the best moment we can have with God? Right here, right now, what does God have for us? Mm-hmm. So you know what, we can enjoy God right now. I mean, Paul says in another place in Scripture that we're blessed that we get to suffer for his sake, right? So he embraced it. It's like, man, he doesn't like to suffer. Paul always said, he's like, man, I didn't want to do any of that. I didn't want to get shipwrecked and get beat and tortured and put in prison. I didn't want any of that, but he enjoyed it. He enjoyed that time with God. It became part of his testimony. It deepened his relationship with God. And there was amazing things. I mean, that's when he wrote a lot of the New Testament, is when he was doing something he didn't want to do. He wanted to be out teaching, and he's like, well, I'm in prison now. I got to sit here, and all I can do is write. Well, aren't we thankful that he embraced the moment and actually wrote some letters to people? Patience with other people, that's a huge one. Sometimes it's the people in our lives that we have to be patient with. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 14 says, we exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak, be patient with all. Right, saying the unruly, the faint-hearted, the weak, those people can be annoying sometimes, right? If you're doing well and it's like, man, you're so weak, just get over it. Or you're unruly, just mature already, stop walking in the flesh. And he's saying, no, don't just get annoyed with them, be patient with them. Mm-hmm. Embrace the moment and see it as an opportunity to minister to them. See, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak. Don't get frustrated with them, embrace the moment and love on them. Love is patient. And when we aren't seeing the fruit, even though we're doing what God's called us to do, that's another time for patience. 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 13 says, as for you, brethren, do not grow weary in doing good. Right? And in the context here, he's saying, listen, some people stopped working and they're just taking advantage of you because you're being generous and they're not working. And so they're being generous. And he's saying, don't grow weary in doing good, even though these people are still taking advantage of it. So he's telling them, don't let them eat if they aren't working, but you don't burn out. Just because they're taking advantage, don't let that get to you. Don't burn out. Keep doing good things, even though you aren't seeing the fruit of it immediately. And that could be with ministry, with family, with anything. You might be really kind to somebody and they're really rude back to you. Do not grow weary in doing good. Be patient. Embrace the moment right now because, again, you get to decide right now who you are. Amen. And that's the big question is right here, right now, who am I? Right here, right now, who am I called to be? I don't have to wait till tomorrow, till something else. This exact moment could be the best moment of my life up until this point. And tomorrow could be even better and the next day could be even better. So again, that's really what I wanted to share with you all again is just enjoying the journey, learning to embrace what God has for us today, and knowing that when we don't want to wait, we can draw on God's supernatural love and peace and patience to ride out things and look forward to the future. I'm all about looking forward to the future, but not at the expense of enjoying right now. So I hope that's been a blessing to you all. Now I hope we'll be able to get to a few of your questions, and hopefully I know the answers. Not all this wait here, and you can practice being patient.
Yeah, exactly. Just be patient. Eventually it'll come. Yeah. So you guys have submitted some great questions. So thanks, Daniel. That's amazing. And I think in this day and hour, because we are such a microwave society, patience is not something that is naturally there. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely a timely message. So first question, we have Ruthie on chat. She says, what if you were all set up to do something, but obstacles or situations arise where now you have to wait a while? How do you get over the mindset that you will be missing out on something you were expecting to see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that is the major setback of I'm missing out. God called me. I could be doing so much right now. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. If I just had my better job, I could be blessing my kids more if I had more money. I could be ministering more if I had. And so, again, that's the main thing. But again, like I was saying, right here, right now, what can you do? We can't do what we can't do. If it's not in our hands, it's not in our hands. But sometimes it's those quiet moments, it's the slow moments where God can do amazing things, right? Where the multitudes left when Jesus said, hey, disciples, go across the lake in the boat, and I'm going to go pray. It looked like that was going to be a boring moment. They weren't ministering, they weren't raising the dead, they weren't doing anything like that, and yet that's when Jesus walked on water and completely transformed how we see God, how we understand faith, how we understand following Jesus. So it was a powerful moment, even though it looked like we're just going in a boat, and Jesus is on the wrong side of the lake, so we don't even know how long we're going to have to waste because it's going to take forever. Like, when's he going to walk around and catch up with us, or is he going to catch another boat tomorrow? It looked like this is going to be a boring season. Hey, maybe they looked forward to it. Hey, we're taking a break from the crowds. But they could have been thinking,
what do you think they were thinking?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, they're probably just thinking, this is lame, right? It's a storm and we're rowing across this boat
right.
and we're scared or whatever. It's just, it's a long day. They probably didn't just say, hey, 1 hour message and we're done. It was probably a long day preceded by other long days.
Yeah.
But again, that could have looked like a boring moment. We're missing out. We're not doing powerful things right now. And yet it ended up being a powerful moment with God. And so, again, some of the awesomest things in my life were when I was locked away in some place where I physically couldn't do anything. I won't get into all that. But sometimes it's like, I can't do anything. This moment's going to be really boring, or I have roommates that annoy me, or I have a job that I like, or whatever it is. And yet when I turn to God, some of those turned into some of the best moments I've ever had with God, where it's, okay, I'm just connecting with you. And the world's going to be there when we're ready for it. But right now, I'm just going to enjoy right now. And so, I just say, don't beat yourself up that there's more you could be doing. There's more you could be doing right now that you're not seeing. It's about shifting our eyes and saying, you know what, forget about the fruit and the work I could be doing. I'm going to focus on the relationship I could be having right now with God.
Amen. And do you think that sometimes God knows the end from the beginning, so that maybe he sees things that could potentially happen and he's protecting you from that?
Yeah.
But most of the time we don't think of that, do we?
Probably he knows the end from the beginning.
I know, probably.
Yeah, and so absolutely. And sometimes it could be even what you think you're looking forward to, you're not ready for it. And he's preparing you right now so that when you get there, you're like, thank God I didn't just get there when I thought I wanted to get there. Or it could be, oh yeah, I've seen things where I'm running late for something, and then, some abnormal delay where something just goes wrong, and it's like, okay, I gotta stay in peace right now because I'm annoyed because I'm running late for something. And then when you actually drive by that street of where you would have been, there was a major crash right there, and you're like, I would have been right there when that happened if I hadn't been delayed. So there's all kinds of things where it's like, it could be God protecting us, it could be God preparing us. Right. Think of promotion, right? You don't want to get promoted to a level where you're going to crash and burn. I told God, I was like, don't ever take me anywhere that I'm not ready for, because the last thing I want to do is be a flash in the pan with my life and be like, well, I did these awesome things for God, but I didn't have the character to keep me there.
That's it.
And it just destroyed my life, destroyed my relationships. So again, it could be a lot of different reasons, but the main thing is just ask God what they are. If we don't know what they are, say, God, okay, how can we make the most of right now?
Amen. Praise God. That's awesome. Thank you, Ruthie. So, Casper on chat says, if you follow God's leading and then all keeps falling through, how can we trust wisdom?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, there's a lot to be said for wisdom. Mm-hmm. So that's something we want to grow in. But again, you could be doing everything right. It doesn't mean you made the wrong call. Like I mentioned with Paul and Silas, they literally obeyed God and then they got arrested, and it looked like a setback. It's easy for us, it's easy because we know what happened after.
Yeah.
They didn't know that.
Yeah.
When Peter got put in prison, he didn't know that.
Yeah.
He didn't know, like, an angel's about to set me free. James had just been killed. So Peter might have been thinking, I'm about to get killed too. What's going on? I thought God gave us power, and we're getting picked off one by one. And so for us, we know that stuff, but for them, it's like, that setback actually isn't a setback. Or maybe it is. Maybe we made a mistake and we need to grow. And okay, do I need more word in me? Do I need more revelation? Am I believing some lies somewhere? But again, we can just say, okay, something went wrong. I made a mistake somewhere, I think. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe this is all part of the plan. But we can just go back to God and say, teach me what I need to know.
Yeah.
Being humble and teachable is huge. So saying, okay, I messed up big time. And I thought I heard God, but I didn't. God wasn't the weak link, but okay, maybe my ears were. So it's like, okay, God, teach me to hear your voice more clearly. Is there anything I'm believing that I shouldn't be believing? Is there anything I'm expecting I shouldn't be expecting? Did I have any of my own agenda mixed in there? You know, sometimes people prophesy and God gives them a word and they turn it into a paragraph or a novel. And it's like they keep elaborating, and God's like, well, God didn't say all that. God said this. And sometimes we add to it. Then we get frustrated when the other stuff doesn't work out. So, yeah, I would say go back to God and just say, what do I need to know? What did I miss? See it as an opportunity to grow. Anytime that I mess up, it's exciting in a sense because it means there's something I didn't know.
Amen.
And now I can ask God and find out something I didn't know. And so if we always live life like that, I have personal debriefs. What went well? What didn't go well? How can I do this better next time?
Right.
And so I'd say just go to God, see it as an opportunity to grow and to learn and run forward like that. Because again, right here, right now, that's what victory looks like, is getting back up.
Amen. Praise God. That's awesome. So we have HS on chat, and he says, I'm still confused with, are we waiting for God or waiting on God?
Yeah, so I would say we're waiting on God.
Okay.
We should be waiting on God. Because now we might be waiting for timing for something, but we shouldn't be waiting for that. We shouldn't just be sitting around and saying, well, God told me that this is going to happen in 5 years, and so I'm just going to kill time for 5 years, and get on the computer and play games.
Solitaire.
Yeah, solitaire, and Candy Crush or something.
Right.
And just kill time. It's like, no, we should be waiting on God. It's kind of like, I like the example of a waiter, right? They're waiters. Where a waiter ideally isn't just waiting and sitting around doing nothing for you to leave, right? They're waiting on you. They're attentive to you.
Amen.
They're paying attention. How can I serve you right now? How can I respond? How can I react to you and respond to you right now?
Amen.
So waiting on God is more of a position of the heart of, I'm attentive to you. I'm paying attention to you, and I'm going to react to you. When you say go left, I go left. When you say go right, I go right. That's waiting on the Lord, as opposed to just like, well, I'm just killing time until God's promises come true. That's totally different because, like I said, right here, right now, God has something for you. So if we think we're waiting for Him, we're actually missing what He has for us right now.
Praise God.
And so it's definitely waiting on the Lord is much more powerful than just waiting for God. Because even if that does work out and you just kill time, will you be the person that God created you to be when that happens? If you've just been killing time, it's like, well, now I'm just a lazy person who has this powerful gifting, or whatever it is.
Right.
It's like, I'm waiting on God. I'm training my heart right now to trust God because killing a bear, killing a lion prepared David to kill Goliath, but that prepared him to be the king. Everything was preparing him for the next step and the next step and the next step. So we can always have that forward momentum with God.
Have you ever looked back on your life and seen it as such, as like, say when you were in the Marines, doing what you had to do, how did that prepare you for your life?
Yeah, I could go off on rabbit trails, but absolutely. Right. It's amazing how you can look back.
I know, right?
And you see, man, if I hadn't gone through that.
Yeah.
Like one example for me is when I was in the Air Force. So after the Marines, a few years later, I joined the Air Force and did that for 5 years. So I actually made it that time and I enjoyed it. But I was an airborne cryptologic linguist and I studied Korean, and that was like 2 years of training of Korean. It was supposed to be 1.5 years, but it took me 2.
Hey, it's real.
I'm very patient. I'm strong in this thing.
You're strong in patience, praise God.
But thing is, I already speak Spanish. And so 1 or 2 months into it, I was like, why am I learning Korean? I already know Spanish because I wanted to be a missionary. So I was like, I wanted to go to North Korea if that ever opens up. So I was like, I want to go there. But as I already know Spanish, I could still go to Latin America. I love Latin America.
Yeah.
And so I started wanting to quit. I was like, I just want to quit and be done with this because I'm not enjoying it. It's not fun. And it's going to take a long time, and I'm wasting time. Like, I could be doing more. And why am I doing this? Why did I sign a contract to be in the military so long? I can't leave now. Yeah. And so, I was talking to my dad on the phone once, and I was like, yeah, I think I want to quit Korean and just switch over to Spanish. My dad told me, stick it out. Because even if you don't use this in the future, prove to yourself that you're not a quitter. Wow. And so for me, I was like, you know what? I still haven't used Korean in a practical way yet. I still think someday I may. Yeah. But that experience showed me that I can complete things, that I can see things through. And so it became more about a character building thing, where sometimes it's like, hey, you know what? If I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now or what I did before. So every step of the way, even if we don't understand it, it's amazing how much we look back and we say, if God hadn't brought me through that and that victory there, it seems unrelated, that ended up setting me up for success in that level, in that area. So it's powerful. And we don't usually know what it was until we look backwards, but it's fun to look back sometimes.
Praise God. Let's do one more question. I know we're running a little bit past, but DJ Ellie on chat says, how do we determine when we should be patient and when we need to step out in faith?
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, they're both true at the same time, right? See, true patience requires faith. And true faith is, again, the patience, embracing the moment. So now as far as when do we make the move, right? It's God called me to marry this person. When do I go talk to them? Well, God called me to go to school here or to step out in missions there. I would say, again, it boils down to the key to everything, and the other two ones I taught, is hearing God. Right? See, the key to patience, like I'm saying, is embrace this moment right here, right now. And if we're fully embracing this moment right here, right now, God will show us, is the best thing for me to do right now to step out of the boat or not yet? Am I still spending time with Jesus in the boat before I step out of the boat? You know, that kind of thing. And so, again, I can't just say, 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, then you know.
Right.
I can't give a definite answer, but the principle is embrace this moment right here, right now, and God will show you when it's time to step out. Because if you're truly walking in patience, then you won't take the step out of fear. See, that's what happens sometimes. People say they're taking a leap of faith when actually they're taking a leap of fear. I need to leap now because if not, my calling won't happen. Yeah. My future won't happen. And so they're motivated by fear that it's not happening fast enough. So if we're truly walking in patience, that'll make faith that much easier. And then if we're truly walking in faith, we'll be like, well, no, right here, right now, because faith is hearing God. And so if I hear God and right now He's not telling me to jump, I'm not going to jump.
Amen.
And so they complement each other. So I'd say, again, when we have that inner peace of I'm going to jump when God tells me to. I mean, Moses didn't start his ministry till he was 80. Right. I'm not saying you have to wait that long, unless you're like 79 and a half. Yeah, maybe it will be when you're 80. But it's, again, when we walk in both, God will guide our steps in that. And it'll just complement itself. It'll be really good. Because we want to be motivated by faith, whether we're moving or not. Because in the Spirit, both can be movement. Doing nothing, if we're walking in true patience and faith, that's not doing nothing. In the Spirit, amazing things can be happening, even though on the surface it may look like nothing.
Praise God. That's awesome. Well, Daniel, I wish we could keep going, but I've already went over our time. So thank you guys for tuning in and for the questions that you've brought in, sent in. I would encourage you that if you need prayer, if you want more resources on some of this stuff, please call our prayer ministry line, which is 719-635-1111. And don't forget to tune in on Monday morning at 10 a.m. We will have Wendell Parr teaching on Monday morning. And Daniel, just thank you very much for sharing. This was a blessing. So you guys have a great weekend. I speak blessing and safety over you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.